This is Johnny Dosco. Stay tuned for another Score Sheet podcast. Holy Kadelka!
Hello and welcome to another Score Sheet podcast. I'm very happy to say that today we have as a guest Sean Forman, who is the person that started the website Baseball Reference. How are you today, Sean?
I'm good. Thank you for having me.
Sure, glad to have you here. BaseballReference.com, for those of you who've never been to that site, started out in year 2000, and they used to, at the end of every season, put up that season's statistics and then had past season statistics up. But over the last 10, 11, 12 years, they've become much more cutting edge. They now get stats updated for players every single day. They give great fielding stats. If you're wondering about whether so-and-so played second base 3 years ago in the minor leagues, then Baseball Reference is definitely the place I go to find things like that. How have things been going for you the last couple of years?
Very well. You know, we continue to add new stuff, and you know, traffic's been growing over time. We added a mobile site last April, so it's certainly no complaints.
So by mobile site, you guys are moving on to where people can use their iPhones or whatever mobile device to access the stats?
Right. We really want to be able to answer whatever user questions, whatever questions about baseball stats that people have, wherever they have them. So when, you know, if you're at a bar, you know, you're having a dispute over who led the 1975 National League in home runs, you can, you know, get out your smartphone, call up our website and see it, you know, in a matter of seconds. So it's, you know, whatever questions people have, we want to be able to answer them, you know, wherever they are.
Well, that's a good point. So I can make a bet with my brother, but before we settle on the bet, I can run off to the bathroom and check to make sure I'm right.
There you go. You no reason to lose any of those bets anymore.
That would be excellent. But so it is actually, that's how the site started and I first went, was just to look up historical data when I couldn't remember how many home runs Harmon Killebrew had. But now it's also great for fantasy players because, as I said, you update things pretty much on a daily basis.
Right. Yeah, we try to keep it up to date daily. We, you know, we've added things like news feed, so you can see, you know, which players have interesting articles about them on various team blogs and newspaper websites. We've added things like injury reports. You know, we have transactions. We have full contract information now, and also minor leagues. We update all of our minor league data daily. I know my score sheet team, I've got about 15. We're rebuilding, so we have about 15 minor leaguers on our team, so I can check in on them on a regular basis and see how they're doing.
Well, yeah, and the other nice thing is, at least from the user standpoint, virtually everything you guys offer is free. And then you have some premium offers.
Right. We have the Play Index, which is our premium site. It's really very in-depth search tools is how I would describe it. It's we've used mostly RetroSheet data. It's updated daily, so you can see you know, things like who has the longest hitting streak in a particular year, which Yankee has had the most multi-hit games against the Red Sox since 1919. You can look at things like, you know, show me all of Derek Jeter's ground ball outs. And really, again, it's about whatever questions you have. We want to provide a format for you to answer those questions.
Well, that's it. Like I said, I can't say enough about the site if you're looking for historical data or nowadays even current data. And so the thing I like, or at least use the most for Scoresheet, I think, is fielding numbers for people, especially that were in the minor leagues, just things that aren't that easy to come by.
Yeah, we haven't updated it for the last year or so, but we've even in the minor leagues had some of the advanced sabermetric fielding, like total zone ratings that Sean Smith produced, and hopefully we'll get those updated again, you know, this year, and maybe start updating in season so you can even get advanced fielding metrics for the minor leagues as well. Because it's, you know, it's very hard. These players are never on TV. You can't see what they look like. You know, it's very hard to scout some of these players. So if you can have a better idea of you know, of their fielding numbers, I think that, you know, would have a lot of value.
Well, and it might give you a hint as to whether this catcher you're thinking of drafting is still going to be a catcher when he comes to the major league.
That's right. That's right. Yeah, you can see, you know, just how many, you know, just what Jesus Montero's, you know, pass ball rate is, and what his caught stealing stolen base rate is, and, you know, those are all things that are updated every day.
Yeah, I mean, it's hard enough to draft a prospect when they're in single or double A, and then you pick a Will Myers, and a year or two later, when he's about to make the majors, suddenly he's an outfielder.
Right. Right. Yeah, and I mean that's we try to account for those positional differences as well with some of our stats like wins above replacement that try to take into account positional differences and value players according to that. Which is one of the things I enjoy about score sheet is you have to actually put a player in that position, and you can't stuff your lineup with guys who can't field and pad your stats. So that's something to the game that you don't see in a typical fantasy game, obviously.
Yeah, I think certainly the fact that we use fielding, I think, is one thing a lot of folks use. It being able to put 3 slow left fielders in your outfield lineup is a little unrealistic.
Right. I've my pitching staffs in score sheet have suffered from things like that in the past, so I certainly know that's the case.
Well, as you said to me earlier before we started, one possibility for that might be that you're doing so much work on your own website you don't have quite as much time to study for your score sheet
Right.
game.
That's definitely true in my case. There's always kind of this moment of panic about a week before our draft starts, where I feel like I suddenly have to look up who the fifth option in the Padres bullpen is, and I haven't the foggiest right now who any of those even their third or fourth options might be at this point.
And well, I know, but I usually draft the one that falls apart, and I miss the guy that goes on to have the 2 ERA.
That's well, the Padres are good for that. So it's if drafting Padre relievers is usually a good bet, but yeah, I've had a few of them bite me in the past.
Yeah. No, I was talking to Jeff Young on our previous podcast about the benefit of pitching in Petco Park. And
Right.
it makes Aaron Harang even look like a pretty good pitcher to pitch in that park.
Right. Park factors are a big aspect to it. And, just bring it back to Baseball Reference. We allow you to park adjust the numbers. And, even there's a neutralize tool if you go to the more stats area for pitching or batting, where you can, move a player from one park and into another park and see how their stats might change, assuming that they hit similarly, but just have the park effects being different.
So if you want to see what maybe effect Albert Pujols will have from going from St. Louis to Anaheim, you actually have a tool that'll help show that?
Yeah, if you go to Pujols page, and then it's a little bit hidden because there's so much data on the site. It's very hard to kind of cram it all into an easy to find place. But if you go to Pujols page, and then if you look just above his name at the top, we have a number of sections. We have batting, fielding, minors, etc. And if you click on batting, go to the bottom. There's a neutralize feature that will allow you to move him into Anaheim and convert all of his career numbers into as if he was playing in Anaheim.
That's amazing. I didn't know you had that. Well, now I've learned something valuable. For Pujols, I think people obviously are going to draft him where they're going to draft him. But for a guy like Aaron Harang, that would, and before you get sucked into drafting him because of his Petco numbers, now that he's in Dodger Stadium, which is still probably a decent pitcher park,
right?
It still, I would think, is going to change his draft position if you take the time to look that up.
Right, or a Marco Scutaro or a Matt Latos. Those are guys who are moving into either to or from an extreme park, and in both cases, they'll probably inflate their numbers somewhat.
Well, I know you're a Philadelphia fan. You have any insight on how some of those guys are going to age this year?
Well, they're certainly a year older. I've long been banging the drum that Ryan Howard is overrated for at least for what they're paying him. It's going to be a little tough on the Phillies having him out. He's a good offensive player, not a great player overall, but it's going to hurt them to have him out, and who knows what he'll do when he comes back as well. I think for them, obviously the pitching is going to should be fabulous. I think the question is, are the guys on offense going to hold up over the course of the year? Is Chase Utley going to be able to to play the whole season? I remember last year, for a while it was touch and go as to whether he was whether he was even going to play last year, because his knee wasn't responding very well, and he's a very gritty, hard-working guy, and so he made it back. But I think that for them, that's the big danger. They're the favorites, but I think the danger for them is obviously injuries, with Rollins, Utley, and Howard all on the wrong side of 30.
Yeah, no matter how good a team is, if they were to lose 2 out of 3 of Rollins, Utley,
right,
and Howard, basically their whole infield, that would be a blow that not many teams can survive.
Exactly.
I agree. Ryan Howard's overrated, though. As a Giants fan, I'd be pretty ecstatic if he was playing first base.
Well, we'd probably send him for, Bumgarner maybe, or
Matt Cain.
Matt Cain. We'd do that. I think Ruben would take your call.
Yeah, I'd like to maybe give you a package of Huff and Zito.
Well, I don't think he's quite that overrated. So
No.
it's maybe in a couple of years if he's really fallen off a cliff, that deal would make sense.
Yeah, well, they've got. I mean, they still have Hamels, they still have Halliday, they still have Cliff
Right,
Lee, and they've got a pretty
right.
good bullpen.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, Jonathan Papelbon's going. He's I as a partial season ticket holder for the Phillies. I'm not excited about going to games with Papelbon closing just because he's so unbelievably slow on the mound, and it's excruciating watching him. But he is effective, so that's good. The starting pitching is going to be as good as anybody's. I think so. The Phillies, they've been able to uncover a lot of pretty good players the later rounds of the draft. Dominic Brown, even Ryan Howard. A lot of guys who have come up, and Vance Worley, who have done well late in the draft. So if they can continue to do that, maybe they can avoid getting old over the next 3 or 4 years. But they should. I expect them to be a playoff team this year again.
Yeah, I mean, they won 102 games
Right.
last year. They could win
Right.
10 less than that and probably make the
Right.
playoffs. What
Right.
do you? Speaking of Dominic Brown, do you see good things for him?
I've been just a little disappointed with how the Phillies have handled him. He hit in the minors, and if you read the sabermetrics writings, that's generally a pretty good evidence that he's going to hit in the majors. It sounds like they're going to keep him down for a while. If it were me, he'd probably be my left fielder next year. But it doesn't sound like the Phillies are going to do that.
So they are talking about actually starting him in the minor leagues, huh?
Yeah, I believe so. I mean, I think that's currently the plan.
Wow, that'd be a nice problem to have a Dominic Brown that you couldn't find room
Yeah,
for.
that's right. We'll see. He's done about what everything. His defense was pretty poor when he came up, so that's I think there's that issue. That the Phillies maybe are hoping that he'll improve his defense, but I mean, his hitting last year was not atrocious. I mean, he was, for a rookie, he wasn't that. I mean, considering how patient they were with Raul Ibanez all year, you'd think they could, give Dominic Brown a little more playing time. But we'll see. I'm sure he'll be up at some point. Talent like that doesn't stay down for very long.
No, I mean, I'm kind of a big believer that these young guys that get bounced up and down, like Brandon Belt or Dominic Brown or a few Anthony Rizzo last year, those guys,
Right.
it's hard enough to be a young guy without
Right.
getting bounced up and down. And then some of them, like Belt and Alonso, Yonder Alonso, have to learn a new position at the same time they're getting bounced between AAA and the
Right.
majors.
Right. Yeah, no, it's certainly the case. I mean, you look at a team like the Red Sox, they stuck with, Dustin Pedroia when he was really, really, I mean, anything, Dustin Pedroia struggled far more than probably any of those guys did. And they kept with him, and, he won an MVP award. And, Jacoby Ellsbury had some bad struggles as well. And he's, worked it out and become obviously a tremendous year last year as well. So I don't think you gain anything by jerking these guys around, but there's a lot of pressure on the teams. They want to win, and they think that's probably their best approach for doing so, I guess.
I actually had Dustin Pedroia his rookie year, and I got laughed at our draft when I took him because it's just a single season league, and I
Okay.
defended him. And then after a month, of course, I benched him because he was so bad. And then it took me about
Right.
3 months to get him back in my starting lineup. By which point I think he came in first or second in the Rookie of the Year award. So he didn't do me much good since I had him on
Right,
the bench.
right. It's hard to know when the rookies are going to click, but you look at a guy. I think Freddie Freeman, last year, I think he was had a pretty good first 2/3 of the season. Kind of struggled near the end, but he's another guy who's probably gonna go off one of these years and have it. Jason Hayward's another example, a guy who struggled last year. I think there was even some discussion in Atlanta about what they should do with him. But if it were me, he'd be go out to right field and play is how I would handle it. But they're under a lot of pressure, and obviously they trying to make moves that'll improve the team.
Right. Well, I think Atlanta and the good organizations, I think what Atlanta did, they moved him down in the order, but they didn't at least send him
Right.
back to the minors, which,
Right.
as long as the guy's playing, I don't think he cares so much where he bats. But to go back to AAA 2 or 3 times in a year, it's a little rough.
Right. No, I'd agree.
Yeah. Well, Sean, it's been great talking to you. I'm really glad I learned about that tool to compare ballparks.
Thank you for having me. It's been a lot of pleasure talking to you.
Thanks, and we'll talk to you soon.